Kia ora, mabuhay, and hi to everyone in this session. It's such a pleasure to be invited alongside our amazing speakers, Ryan, Catherine, Monica, to give back to our international student and migrant community. I am John Dorado. I am the International Career Development Consultant at the University of Auckland. And you already guessed from the way I talk, you would know that I'm like most of the people, if not all, in this session. I'm also from overseas. I am originally from the Philippines, yes, and I'm a registered nurse. And for similar to many immigrants, I guess, I also have a postgrad. I have a master's in nursing. Yeah, good life and all that. But at some point in my career, I decided to come to New Zealand to study. Yes, I used to be an international student myself. I studied counseling and family therapy, but my goal was to eventually pursue nursing. But when I came here before the end of my study, I was offered a job as a career consultant. And I wasn't sure if I'm going to take it or not, but I said, why not? I'll give it a go. If I don't like it, I could always go back to nursing. Anyways, I had plans B, C, D back then. So after the career consulting role, I ended up working as a student counselor, doing pastoral care in a way quite similar to Monica. And then eventually I did a role which is a hybrid between pastoral care and careers. And then I eventually landed the job as the international career development consultant at the University of Auckland. So yeah, that's my, I guess, my life journey, my career journey in a nutshell. And it's always good to share your stories and to listen to other people's stories, because through these stories we get to learn that careers is no longer a straight line. It's more fluid these days. People like you, all of you guys, you will have different careers in your lifetime, and that's the new norm, really. So the key really is being able to be open to opportunities and understand how you will be able to transfer your skills into other industries, similar to what Ryan and Catherine spoke earlier. So because we're talking about life journeys and transition, and I'm the last speaker, so I thought maybe my presentation would be more around maybe tips on how to successfully transition to New Zealand. So I have 4 tips for you. And my very first one has been highlighted actually by Monica, Ryan, and Catherine, and that is knowing your why, knowing your purpose. What I mean by that is you have to ask yourself and have that honest conversation. Why did you come to New Zealand? To either study, oh, sorry, somebody's sort of chatting. To either study or migrate or, all right. So study, migrate, or work. So you have to ask yourself why. And once you answer that question, you ask yourself again, why is that important to you? And after you answer that question, repeat the same question. Why is that important to you? Or why is that important to me? And you have to do the exercise. This is a really nice reflective exercise that you can do by yourself or with someone else, like a partner or your friend. And what you'll get from this is you will have an understanding of your deeper motivations in life. And these motivations, you can make them as goals. You can, depending on what you come up with, you can classify them into long-term, medium-term, and short-term goals. And when I do this exercise with my clients, the most common theme that people say is that they come to New Zealand because they want to have a better life for themselves, or maybe for their family. So that would be their for their siblings, their partners, their children. And that in itself could be a long-term goal if you think about it. And then usually if I ask them, so why is that, how will you be able to do that? And they would usually say, well, I need to be a resident or a citizen of this country. But you could classify that as a medium-term goal. And then sometimes, if I ask them, how are you going to achieve that? Most often than not, they would say, I need to find a sustainable and a skilled job. And that could be your short-term goal. And when you talk to people in the community, that is usually the common theme that you'll hear. People need a job. Yes, because when you migrate to a new country, finding a stable and sustainable job is key to one's success, amongst other things. So that's the first thing, is to know your why. Okay, and once you know why you're here, then and you can start creating a plan. But of course, before you start job searching, the other thing I would suggest you do is to learn as much as you can about New Zealand. Of course, this is a new country. Things are quite different from what you used to. So it's good to know the basics. So what are the basics I would suggest that you look at? So of course, language and culture, immigration policies and pathways, and of course, the labor market. The first one is language and culture, and this has been touched on by our previous speakers. So usually when you come to New Zealand, people will be like, oh, I can go to New Zealand. It's an English speaking country. I speak uh, English, it should be fine. Hop onto that plane, come to New Zealand. At the airport, you are excited, you talk to the local, and this person starts chatting back to you, and you're like, what is this person talking about? I thought people speak English. This is a different kind of English than I expected. So one of the, I guess one of the first challenges that you might experience is the Kiwi accent. So, and then soon after you realize, then there are Kiwi slangs that you have to get used to. And then there's another language in New Zealand, which is Tereo Maori. So all this, you're like, oh my God, there's so many things to learn. Well, of course, it pays to know the basics, but you don't have to know everything. You learn them as you go. The key really is just to ask. If you don't understand, ask for clarification. And that's perfectly fine. People just want to talk to you here in person, socially, or at work. Just having that confidence to communicate is the key. Many international students and immigrants also are quite shy to communicate with the locals, mainly because people are afraid to make mistakes. I know people might think, oh, I might pronounce words wrong. I choose the wrong words. So remember, as I've said, it's just about conversations. As long as you can hold a conversation, that should be enough. What I found generally, immigrants and international students have really good conversation skills. The problem is just, the confidence really. But as I said, communication is key, but once you start working, like Catherine mentioned and Ryan, if you want to grow within your role, of course, you have to grow that communication skills. That's one of the key factors to further success at work. But when you are starting, having a conversational level, be fine. Okay. And then there's lots of things to learn about the culture, but I guess I would like to highlight the good thing about New Zealand is there is what they call work-life balance. And I think that's why most immigrants come to New Zealand, because we have that. Overseas, people just work. There's no life. It's just work, work, and that's pretty much your life. But in here, your employers do value and respect that you have your own personal lives. And a key aspect of why I have that is because the work environment is quite relaxed. Things are quite casual and informal. And that's a good thing, really. But if you are from a country where there is a strong emphasis on having social hierarchy and work structure, working in New Zealand can be a bit challenging, especially because when you talk to your managers, you call them on a first name basis. You don't call them sir, you don't call them ma'am. So that can be a bit different, it can be strange, all right? And then also Kiwis tend to, because we're casual, people tend to chat. So there's a culture of having small talk. So your managers will talk to you, ask about your weekend and all those things. And if you're not used to having that kind of interaction with your superiors, as I said, can be one of the challenges. But as I've said as well, be mindful that you learn this as you go. The key really is just observe how people interact. And if you don't know how to navigate the space, feel free to ask, okay? And what else? Second thing is, of course, immigration policies and pathways. It is very important to, I guess, remember that as an international student or a person on temporary visa, your legal right to stay in the country is tied with your visa. So understanding what your visa means is very important, meaning what can you do with that visa? Can you work? What other things can you do? What are the other options for you? What are the pathways for you? Especially if you plan to permanently stay in the country or at least extend your visa. So also the other thing I'd like to highlight is that immigration policies are quite political. And so it pays to keep an eye on the goals or the plans of the government, because with that, sometimes what they tend to do is they ease in certain policies, which you could take advantage and you can use as an opportunity for yourself. Just, I guess, a disclaimer, I am not a licensed immigration advisor. I can't give you immigration advice, but fortunately in New Zealand, almost everything is online. So you can look that up, of course, look at Immigration New Zealand's website, and you'll learn almost, well, everything that you need really. And but if you feel like you need professional help, you can have a look, you can get a lawyer to help you out. And in New Zealand, lawyers are registered under the New Zealand Law Society. And maybe once Ryan becomes a lawyer, then you can get Ryan's help as well. You can also get the help of licensed immigration advisors. So licensed immigration advisors in New Zealand are registered under the New Zealand Immigration Advisors Authority. And then you can just jump onto these websites, type in their names, and if they are registered, their names should come up on the list. The other thing that is also important is to learn about the labor market. So of course, when you are job searching, don't just jump into the job market, because you have a plan. Otherwise, you'll be wasting lots of energy, your time, and also resources, because the more you're job searching, you spend your time job searching, also you bleed money. So be mindful of those. It pays if you do an extra step in researching. So luckily, as I've said, the information that you need are all in your fingertips. So Careers NZ and Occupation Outlook are really good places to start with. You will find different jobs in New Zealand in there, and they will describe what the job is about. How do you get registered? Similar to what Ryan and Catherine said, like how do you become a lawyer? How do you become a teacher? What are the professional organizations out there? How likely are you to get a job? What are similar or related jobs to the industry that you can pursue? So it's a really nice resource. Another one is LinkedIn, Trade Me and Seek. They're the basics in terms of trying to get a feel of what jobs are currently available out there and which areas. And speaking of which areas, you can also have a look at the essential skills in demand list, which is maintained by Immigration New Zealand. So within this list, Immigration New Zealand tells you which regions, which industries have certain demands for certain skills. So it will help you plan when you are job searching. And as I've said, there's no shame in asking for help. Please do ask if you don't know. Everybody needs help, especially at the beginning. So if you're an international student, go see a consultant like me in your career center. I'm sure you'll have one, or you'll have an international office within the university that you are a part of. You can also go and reach out to professional and community organizations such as the Asian Family Services. You have Citizens Advice Bureau. Then you'll have professional organizations for engineers, for teachers, for nurses, for counselors, for lawyers. And these professional organizations, they also provide professional support to their members. So have a look. Sometimes they also have immigrant groups within professional organizations. So have a look at those ones, really helpful as well. And another way to learn about the labor market, which we in my team, we talk about a lot, is to do what Catherine has actually done. And what Catherine has done is called informational interview. What you do with this is you reach out to someone who is doing the job that you're doing, or doing the job that you would want to do, sorry. You're reaching out to someone who is doing the job that you wish to do in the future. Say for Catherine, she wanted to become a teacher, so reach out to someone who's doing teaching. And then what do? You ask for information. What sort of information? You ask for advice, you ask for their insights about the job, about the company, about the industry. By doing so, what it does for you, it allows you to better understand what the job entails. It tells you what opportunities are out there for you. And this connection could become part of your network, Or like what happened to Catherine, it could end up as an interview, because informational interview is a way to get, one way to get a job as well. All right, so that's a really helpful strategy. And the third one is to be proactive and strategic in your job search. So when you create a plan, it's okay to apply online. Online applications do give you jobs, but it's not the only way to find a job, especially in New Zealand. I know in certain countries, everything's online. You just scan a QR code and you have applied to a job. But in New Zealand, people tend to prefer that human interaction to be part of that. So again, online application is okay, it's good, but don't just rely on online application. Do other proactive job search approaches. So the two main types I would quickly talk about. So there's an indirect and a direct method, sorry. So with the indirect method, is networking. It's just mainly meeting people. And that's, most of the time, that's the way people find jobs around here. People find jobs through other people that they know, or through jobs to other people that the people they know referred them to, if that makes sense. And then informational interview, as we have mentioned. The other one is more of a direct approach, which means that you directly talk to employers and in a way gauge if they are looking for employees. So you can use what they call door knocking, you can do cold calling and emailing. So basically all this, you're directly interacting with your employers. Door knocking means you physically go to a company and in a way door knock. You don't door knock anymore these days, but that's what they're called. And then you talk to employers. The other one is cold calling, pick up a phone and ask, or cold emailing. So you send someone a message and ask, all right? Now, between these two, both of them are effective, but in general, in New Zealand, what I found is that the indirect job search strategy, network, informational interview tend to be more effective. It's mainly because Kiwis are very friendly, but they are slow to trust, meaning when they meet someone, they're still gauging if they're gonna like working with you, or they can trust that you can do the job. So this indirect method allows them to, I guess, process that feeling and that information if they want to take you in. But of course, there are situations where you don't have the luxury of time. Your visa is about to run out. You have 1 to 2 months left, for example. You really need a job. Then maybe a more direct approach might be appropriate for you at that stage. Or if you have really a wealth of experience, 10 years industry experience, that's amazing. And then you understand very well the New Zealand job market, then go do a more of a direct approach in job search. But I guess I'd like to highlight in there, just sort of a heads up, when you approach employers, be mindful of the Kiwi social etiquette, because sometimes when we are really excited and really, I know, as people I've mentioned, immigrants, international students tend to be very hardworking, very determined. Sometimes too much of that, people sometimes take that as kind of rude, a little bit of slight rudeness in there. So just be mindful, and so that you don't come across as rude. All right. And the second part of this is when you are just looking for a job, if you find it challenging to get to the mainstream, I guess, in big companies, go for a strategy or go for an approach where you have less competition. Of course, with less competition, the higher the chance of you getting the job. So what are the jobs, or where can you find these jobs where there's less competition? Now think of this as most people prefer the big city, especially immigrants, because most people here in this session would be from a big city overseas. So the people prefer Auckland, so people stay here. Most people with that, meaning more people in Auckland, more competition. So maybe for you, number one, maybe look for a place or a location where there's less competition. So go outside Auckland. So remember, this first job is not your forever job. It's just a stepping stone. Always remember that, a stepping stone to your goal. The other thing could be look for a job where it's more of casual. The type of employment is casual or temp work. So they're quite similar, a bit different, but quite similar. So you can go for them, casual or temp work, or you can also do a job that is a step lower, than what you want. Now, I know people, this could be a bit controversial. People say, why do I need to step down? For example, you're an engineer. I'm an engineer, 10 years experience. Well, sometimes, as somebody mentioned, I think Monica mentioned, that in New Zealand, many businesses are small, or SMEs, they're called. So because they're small, usually they only need, for example, a couple of engineers. So the opportunities are quite slim for you, especially if you've been job searching for 3, 4 months and no success. So maybe it's time to sort of be open to other opportunities. So maybe say you're an engineer, maybe go for a step lower, which could be a technician, a draftsperson, maybe a cost estimator, a surveyor. So these jobs, as I've said, they're just temporary stepping stones. They're not for your forever job, okay? But what it does when you apply for these jobs, of course, it will open up more opportunities for you, and then it's your foot in the door. Once you are in the company and doing the job in the industry, you will understand, especially if you really worked in the industry, you would already know that, all right, you can see the gaps, you can see the opportunities, you can see, oh, okay, it's similar to what I used to do. The only difference is this and that. So that will give you a better an idea, and you're like, wow. And from that, you realize there's lots of gaps and lots of opportunities for you. But you have to do this first step. And then so while you're doing that, you build your relationship with your employers, with people in the company, and that eventually you also build your work experience. And that's one of the things that Kiwi employers also look for: local work experience. But whilst you're in the company, it's also easier to get promoted, navigate within the company if you're already there, because they already trust you. Remember, I told you earlier, I said earlier, Kiwis are very friendly, but they're slow to trust. But once you have shown that you have the capability, then lots of doors will open for you for sure. But in case you want to move to another company, but because you have worked locally, other New Zealand employers will be more confident that you can do the job, that you can work with them effectively because you've done it previously. All right, so that's the other thing. All right, just mindful of the time. So just a quick recap. For my tips for successful transition to New Zealand, the first one is to know your why. And then once you answer that, ask yourself, why is that important to me? And then do that over and over again. And then try to map out your goals based on that. Secondly, learn as much as you can about New Zealand. And the basics would be language and culture, then immigration policies and pathways, and of course, the labor market. And then the third one is be proactive and strategic. Don't just rely on online applications, do other approaches. Basically what the other approaches are is to go out there, like what the others have said, go out there, meet people. I know some people are saying, oh, I'm an introvert, I'm a shy person. To be honest, I have to tell you, I'm a very introverted person as well, but you learn the skills as you go. You just have to go out there and then you experience it, because it's hard to learn a skill if you're just reading it. You have to actually do it. All right. And then go for jobs where there are less competition, as I've mentioned. Maybe go outside Auckland, do a temp or casual roles, go for maybe a step lower than what you wish, as your first step, and hopefully it gets better from there. And before I go and share my last tip, I guess I just want to highlight what the others have already said, that job searching in itself is challenging, and that is very true. But coming to this country as an immigrant, where the culture is quite different from where you maybe came from, or maybe this is not your first language, English is not your first language, and not having that strong support or network can add extra challenges for you. But always remember that you are brave enough to jump onto that plane and come here. So that's already shows that you're an awesome person and you have lots of potential and you really want to make it. So my last tip is quite similar to the others, what others have said. Be kind to yourself and never, ever, ever give up. And if you feel stuck, and you will, and that really happens to all of us. If you feel stuck, always remind yourself of your why. Why did you come all the way to New Zealand, leaving behind your family, your friends, your work, your life? Why did you want to start over in New Zealand? And also remember that space that you are in is just a temporary space. The more you build your work experience, the more you build your skills, the more you build your network and your professional reputation, the easier and the easier it's gonna be for you to find the next opportunity. And like Catherine said as well, I guess she was saying, she kept finding a job, but she can't get any opportunity. Remember, keep going because you only need 1 year. Yeah, so that's me in a nutshell. Reach out if you need any further support, and thank you so much for your time.